Hello, everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. So, I'm back for yet another Have Your Say video.
Oh, please, not this again.
And this video is for Drag Race UK Season 7, Episode 6. So today, as usual, we're going to be recapping what happened in the episode, going through the results of the Have Your Say poll where you voted on whether you agreed with the outcome of the episode. And I'll be talking about something that happened to do with this week's episode, which was Tayris Mongardi spoke out about the watered down conversation in the episode. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Also, quickly before we start, I'm currently at around 138,000 subscribers, and I'd love those 2,000 more to get me to 140 by the end of the year. So if you haven't already, please whack that subscribe button, literally smash it as hard as you can. I don't care if you break your keyboard. No, I'm just joking, I do. Please just make sure you subscribe because I would genuinely appreciate it, and I'd love to have that as my New Year's resolution treat thing. Okay, so let's start by recapping this week's episode. So we find out that the main challenge this week is the Rusical. I know, I should really be a recording artist.
I lost all hope today.
I love the Rusicals. It's one of my favorite challenges, and I look forward to it in most of the seasons. And what I really like about Drag Race UK specifically is that they usually sing live, unlike some of the other versions. And you don't always have to be like necessarily the best singer, but I think having live vocals does bring something extra to it. So because Select's Addiction won last week's episode, she gets to assign the roles, and pretty much everyone got the role that they wanted, or one of the roles they wanted, apart from Tayris. And there was a little bit of tension about this, and I'll talk about this more at the end of the video because there is some information that came out about this after the episode aired. Okay, so let's go into the actual Rusical itself, which is called Peter Pansy, the Rusical, which is obviously a parody of Peter Pan. And what I'll do is I'll go through the queens in order in which they appeared on stage. Okay, so first up, we'll talk about Elle Vosk, who played Wendy. I really enjoyed Elle in this role. I don't think any of us really knew that she could sing like that. Her voice sounded amazing. She could hit the high notes, she could do the low notes. She's definitely a little bit of a dark horse in the competition, I would say, because no one really knew what she could do because she was very much keeping her cards close to her chest, but I think she's really serving them all, so I definitely would give her a yay. And it looks like you agreed because you said 88.1% for yay, 10.3% for just okay, and 1.6 for nay. Then we had Bones as Granny the dog. I wasn't sure how Bones was going to do this week because we've not necessarily seen her in this sort of role before, but I thought she really sold it. I think the role was probably the funniest in terms of the lines, like the thing when she was obviously lusting after Peter Pansy, and I mean, who wouldn't? And she was like, I think the quote was, "I'm going to eat that ass like doggy chow." I mean, that should literally be like the Tinder bio because you'd get a lot of takers, I feel like, with that. But Bones really sold it. She was very fun, a lot more than I expected her to be, so she definitely gets a yay. Again, looks like you agreed, although maybe not as much as I thought you might. So you said 75.8% for yay, so that's 3/4, but then 21.4% said just okay, so that's almost a quarter, and then 2.8 for nay. Next up, we had Page 3, who played the titular role of Peter Pansy. This was obviously a role that was really meant for Paige because she has a background in theatre and West End, which is like our version of Broadway. She did such a good job. It's such a big undertaking to have such a big role. You have to have a good voice, dancing, all of those at the same time, but also carry the narrative, and use a lot of weight on that little tiny shoulders that she's got. I thought she did such a good job, though. She hit all the jokes. She did the dance routine. She was really funny and convincing as like this aging twink, which is not something that I can relate to.
Delusion.
But anyway, I thought Paige did a fantastic job, and it's not an easy job either, but she did it so well. So definitely she gets a yay. And I think you agreed. I don't think you quite made it clear because you said 90.5% for yay, so the vast majority, 7.9% for just okay, and then 1.6% for nay. After that, we had Select's Addiction as Stinkerbell. I feel like the judges were trying to make out as though Selexa did badly and she was like kind of in the bottom. I personally thought she sold the lines pretty well, and her role was kind of a bit of a weird one because obviously it's supposed to be Tinkerbell, but not really. I thought she actually did a pretty decent job. It wasn't a scene-stealing role, but I thought she did fine. So I probably would give her a yay, but it would have been a yay maybe more towards the just okay side. And I think you agree because you said 47.2% for yay, but then 38.9 for just okay, so not that far off, and then 13.9 for nay. Next up, we had Sally TM, who played Smeg, and this was part of a double role with Bonnie and Clyde, which we'll get onto in a moment. I do unfortunately think that Sally was maybe the weakest of everyone. She did look very much out of her element because she's not really a dancer, as we've seen before. She doesn't really sing either. But I will say, for someone who can't do either of those things, like myself, I thought she actually sounded pretty decent and she did an okay job. It wasn't that she was bad, it's just that she wasn't as good as everyone else, because it was a pretty high standard, I would say. So I think compared to everyone else, I would have to give her either a just okay, but maybe more towards the nay side. In the Have Your Say poll, it looks like you felt kind of the same way, because you said 49.2% for just okay, so almost half, 38.1% for nay. I agree, it would be more on the nay side, but still just okay, and then 12.7 for nay. And then the other half of the pairing was Bonnie and Clyde as Captain Hooker. Out of the two of them, I think that Bonnie did the better job, definitely, between her and Sally. I also think her role was just kind of funnier, but she did deliver the lines better. She seemed a lot more at ease and knew what she was doing. Her voice sounded good as well. So I personally would give her a yay, but she didn't stand out as much as some of the others, but that might be because she had a smaller role. In the Have Your Say poll, interestingly, you actually voted 56% for just okay, which was the majority. Then you said 38.1% for yay. Maybe I would have switched them around, and then it was 6% for nay. And then finally, we had the Croc Destroyers, again, hilarious name, and that was Tayris and Katrin, and I'll start with Tayris because she spoke first. Overall, I will just say, I think these two characters were just the least funny in terms of the lines they were given. You could tell they're that sort of role that's never going to win. So I would just like to say that in their defense first, that I just don't think this was a particularly good role. With Tayris, I thought she actually did decently well. I mean, it wasn't a standout role, but I don't think she did particularly badly. I actually think that she did a better job than Katrin did. But to me, I think neither of them were necessarily amazing, but they weren't awful either. So I probably would give her a just okay, because I think she still did a decent job. I think you agree, because you said 54.4% for just okay, 23% for nay, and then almost the exact amount, 22.6 for yay. And then moving on to the other half of the pair, which was Katrin Feelings. I think she's just a very funny person, so maybe the judges just connected to her in that way. But one thing I noticed, and I noticed it a couple of times, was that Katrin always seemed to be behind Tayris in terms of the beat and the music. She always seemed one step behind. And given that Tayris is a dancer, I imagine, this is just a guess, but I would imagine Tayris was on the beat. So I imagine that means that Katrin was behind. And I did notice that. So that's why I think Katrin probably did a slightly worse job than Tayris. But I still would probably give her a just okay. But it was a lower just okay than Tayris. But it looks like maybe you didn't agree necessarily, because the result for Katrin was 63.5% for just okay, 18.7 for yay, and 17.9 for nay. So it was similar to Tayris's, but Katrin did get more votes in just okay proportionally than Tayris did. And then moving on to the Slay! As in the best Rusical performance, and you voted 52.8% for page 3, and then Elvos came in second with 31%, and then the others were pretty close, but third was Select's Addiction with 6.7, with Bones not that far behind with 5.2. I would agree, I would have to give it to Paige, because although Elle has an amazing voice, I do think Paige, because she had the lead role, she did have probably more work involved in what she did, and she was in almost every scene, so I do think that Paige deserves the slay for this. Okay, so let's move on to the runway for this week, and the category was Battle Axe Warrior Queen. First up, we had Katrin Feelings. I thought this look was good. I don't think it's the most imaginative we've ever seen, but I definitely think it fits the category. I did get the reference straight away of what she was doing and the tartan and the patterns and everything. I thought it was a very nice nod to her Welsh heritage. Overall, The look itself, I think, is fine. It's nothing that we haven't seen before, but the colors were pretty. I think I would give it a just okay, but it would be a just okay towards the yay side because I still liked it. In terms of the Have Your Say poll, you said 56.3% for just okay, which was the majority, 30.6% for yay, and then 13.1% for nay. After that, we had page 3. I thought this look is nice. It's cute. It's showing a lot of skin again, which is something that I think that is Paige's trademark. I don't think it's anything innovative. We've definitely seen something like this before. It's quite simple but tastefully done, but I don't think I could give it more than a just okay because it is a little bit simple compared to what I think it could have been. And you voted 51.6% for just okay, so the majority, 31.7% for yay, and then 16.7% for nay. Next up, we had bones. I really enjoyed this runway. It's one of those things that I think from a distance, if you squint your eyes, you could be like, what is that? It's just this kind of so much going on and it's like, you can't understand it, which is a little bit like me on a Friday night.
Could you shut up a second?
But it just looked really chic. I really thought it fit the category well. I loved like the dangling little razor blades and stuff like that. It was very nice little touches and something quite different that we haven't seen for Bones before. So I definitely would give it a yay. And you voted 78.6% for yay, so over 3/4. 18.7% for just okay, and then only 2.8% for nay. After that, we had Tayris Mongardi. I really enjoyed the concept for this look, and I definitely got that it was supposed to be Black Panther. I thought it was actually quite a cute look. As the judges said, maybe like the base outfit was a little bit similar, but I thought like the thing around the jaw, the big spear and everything, we all like a good spear. I thought that part was really cute, but maybe the actual garment itself was not as elaborate as it could have been, but I still think it was a really cool look and it was really beautiful, but I think I would give it a just okay, but towards the yay side. And interestingly, you were quite split on it in a way, so although just okay did get the biggest proportion, not the majority, as someone recently pointed out, because majority has to be over 50%, because if it's under 50%, it's called a plurality. So you learn something new every day, although I think I have been told this before, but I do have a memory like a sieve.
You're dumb.
But anyway, so just okay did come out on top with 48.4%, but then between yay and nay, it was quite split. Yay did come out on top of the two, so it was 26.2%, but then nay was not that far off with 25.4%. Then we had Bonnie and Clyde. This in some ways I feel like was a little bit similar to what Katrin did in terms of they both have like the ginger, as I would call it, or red hair, and the sword. I mean, the sword obviously is quite, you know, that's a common thing because it is battle axe, warrior, princess type, whatever. But I think this look was maybe slightly more interesting in some ways than what Katrin did. I think it's still a just okay though overall because it's maybe not as exciting as it could have been, but it's still a perfectly nice look. In the Have Your Say poll, you voted 55.2% for just okay, which is the majority, as we now know, because it's over 50%, 32.9% for yay, and 11.9% for nay. After that, we had Sally TM. I really enjoyed this look because it was just so out of the box, very Sally TM coded. Really loved the artistry behind it and the fact that she painted that. And it was obviously supposed to be sort of 2D in the 3D world. Really loved the concept behind that. I say I love the concept a lot. Someone get a count of the amount of times I say the word concept in these videos, and there probably wouldn't be a counter big enough.
525,600.
But I did really love the concept for this, and it was something very much out of the box that no one else did. So I would definitely give this a yay. And again, I think maybe you did agree because 90.9% said yes. So that is definitely the majority. 6.3% for just okay. And then a crazy 2.8% of you said nay. Then penultimately, we had Select's Addiction. I think this is a very pretty look and it's very well done. Her waist is teeny tiny, just like me.
My God, there's room for everybody. Let's just say that.
The only thing I will say about this look, although it is beautiful and I really love that color, we have seen this type of look quite a few times on Drag Race over the years. So I don't know if it was quite as innovative as maybe the judges thought, but I guess for Drag Race UK, maybe it is, because I'm not sure we've had this sort of thing on the runway before. But it is still a really nice look, so I will give it a yay. You said 67.5% for yay, but then over a quarter, 25.8% said just okay, and then 6.7% for nay. And then finally, we had Elle Vosk. I agree with what the judges said, that at first, it was almost like so much. I was like, oh my God, what is it? But then when you look at the details, like when they zoom in on the bodice and all the different jewels and things, it is so intricately done. It is a beautiful look, and she sold it so well. I loved the hair and the makeup that went with it. I'm definitely giving it a yay. And I think you agreed, because you said 75.4% for yay, so over 3/4, and then just okay, still got a decent proportion with 18.7%, and then 6% for nay. Then moving on to the slay for the runway, as in the best runway, and you voted Sally TM with 35.3%, but then not that far behind was Elle Vosk with 26.6%, and then after that it was quite split. Bones got 15.1% and Celexa got 13.5%. I think I would agree that overall I would give it to Sally for the slay, because her look was just so different. It was so out of the box. It was just, I wasn't expecting it. The artistry was amazing. I don't think we've seen something quite like that on Drag Race before, so I think I would have to give her the slay. Okay, so moving on, and we find out that the winner for this week is a double win between Page 3 and Elle Vosk. I asked you in the Have Your Say poll, do you agree with the winner? Although I probably should have said winners. And you said 84.9% for yes and 15.1% for no. So of that small percentage that did say no, I said, who do you think should have won instead? Now, you did vote 47.4% for Elle Vosk, so maybe people meant that they thought she should have got a solo win. And then Bones came in second with 23.7% and Celexa third with 15.8%. Then moving on to the slightly more controversial part of the episode, I feel like, and that was the bottom two, which was Tayris Mongardi and Sally TM. I asked you, did you agree with the bottom two? And it was almost a 50-50 split. So no came out on top with 51.2% and yes came out with 48.4%. So of that more than half of you who voted no, I said, who do you think the bottom two should have been? And you voted 51.2% for Sally TM and then 48.1% for Catherine Feelings. And then Tayris was third with 39.5%. So Tayris and Sally lip-synced the song Don't Rain on My Parade by the legendary Shirley Bassey. And we find out that Tayris is announced as the winner and is therefore safe, and unfortunately that means that Sally TM is told to sashay away. I asked you in the Have Your Say poll, who do you think won the lip sync in your opinion? You voted 77.8% for Tayris and 22.2% for Sally, so well over 3/4 of you agreed that Tayris won. So the final two questions. For question 8, I said, which queen do you think will win the season? And interestingly, this is the second week in a row now that Bones has not been on top, and Elle Vosk got 68.3%, and then Bones has now gone down to second place with only 19.4%, and then Page 3 came in third with 7.5%. And then if we compare that to question 9, which was which queen do you want to win the season, this one is very split, a lot more split than the previous question, but Elle Vosk came out again on top with 26.2%, but then Bones was not that far behind with 23.8%, and then Page came in third with 18.7%. So I just think it's really interesting that now I think most people have switched from Bones being the winner to Elle Vosk. And I do agree, because based on her performance throughout the competition and this week, I do think that Elle is coming out as a front runner. Okay, so let's move on to the comments for this week, and we'll start with my Patreon comments. My Patreon Debs said, the girls calling out Bones walking to the back and then walking to the front, as in the last week's episode when they came back in after the lip sync, I feel vindicated, because I think Debs had said previously that Bones just walked to the front and the back of the stage, and that was kind of all she did. And my other Patreon member, Hermit Queen Jude, said, I've started keeping notes during my watch so I don't forget who did what and who wore what. And that's a very good idea. I mean, I do this for a living. I don't really make notes necessarily, but I make mental notes. Moving on to the comments from the Have Your Say poll, there was a myriad of different, that's a good word, myriad. Anyway, there was a myriad of different topics of the comments. One of the big things was to do with Sally leaving, with people saying things like, what the F, I want Sally back, I love you, Sally. So I think people were very sad that Sally left. I agree, I didn't necessarily think Sally was going to leave this early, but based on this week's performance, I think it probably was fair. And on a similar note, someone said something that I also felt is very true, and they said, I feel like Sally was the only one bringing something truly new to the show, and without her, the rest of the cast kind of just feels boring. Someone said, I thought the girls did a great job despite the poor writing of the Rusical. So, I mean, that's very brutal feedback. I do agree the songs themselves in the Rusical were not my favourite. I think we've definitely had better Rusicals, but I thought it was fine. Nothing special, but perfectly serviceable. There was also a few comments, and I'll talk about this a bit later at the end of the video, but someone said, the mistreatment of the POC queens of this franchise is baffling. Tayris did not belong in the bottom, it was Katrin in my opinion. And as I said, we'll move on to that at the end. Someone said, Elle Vosk is such a surprise, she is good at everything. And as I mentioned earlier, Elle definitely has kind of snuck under the radar, and she's now showing that she has all of these amazing talents. So I do think that Elle is one to watch out for now. Also, I'd just like to say thank you so much for all the lovely, amazing, supportive comments in the Have Your Say poll. I do really love reading them, and it does make me smile when I see people say these things. So honestly, thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it. Okay, so finally, we're going to talk about something that happened on the back of this week's episode to do with Tayris Mongardi speaking out about the conversation in this week's episode. So, as you may remember, during this week's episode, Tayris did not get any of her first choices for the Rusical, which made her get in her feelings. Some of the other queens offered to switch roles with her, but Tayris decided to stick with the role that she had. Then, later on the main stage, Tayris was asked about this, and she said the reason that she did not want to make a fuss was because she's the only queen of colour left in the competition, and she was mindful of how the situation could be perceived.
I was like, oh, I'm the only POC left in the room, which means I've got to fight that much harder. And the minute I feel like I have to fight for what I need for, I don't want to become like an aggressor. But I did like really try and move past it. So I was like, I don't want to project that into the universe. That's something I need to work through.
They also briefly talked about this topic further in Untucked as well. However, after the episode aired, Tayris posted on social media, seemingly alluding that part of the conversation was not shown. Tayris tweeted saying, the misdirection and watering down of that conversation is kind of devastating. And fellow season 7 contestant Katrin Feelings replied to that saying, it's actually really disappointing to see how much they left out. You made your feelings known and spoke about a very important thing about you and your life. It's a shame they left it out. Tayris then did a follow-up tweet which said, in that moment, all the girls were there for me, but going forward, I would really like to thank @Sally Trademark, Bonnie and Clyde and Katrin Feelings for doing their big ones in checking in and accommodating myself and the needs of people of colour after that conversation. And several of the queens commented saying that they love Tayris. Several people online also made the comparison that this week Katrin and Tayris were in a pair in the challenge, similar to when Lydia B. Collins and Corey King were a pair on the season 17 challenge. And in both cases, the white queen was safe, but the queen of colour was in the bottom. Tayris tweeted about this and posted a photo of the pairs and said, Alexa, play Deja Vu by Beyonce. Tayris also posted an Instagram story video joking about this, and the caption said, POV, you're on a 2025 Drag Race season ending in the number 7, and you're a black dancing girl dating a white funny girl, and you get paired together for the Rusical in an animal-themed double act part, and the judges find your partner funnier than you, so they're safe, but you're placed in the bottom 2, and you have to lip sync, but you manage to survive the lip sync and make it through to next week's challenge.
Wow! If I had a nickel for every time I was doomed by a puppet, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
I don't believe Tayris has given any further details about exactly what was not shown during the conversation, but from what she and the other queens have said, it sounds like they did cut out quite a bit of that important conversation. And in general, the topic of race and how queens are treated differently has been a big talking point recently, especially for Drag Race UK, and many people have criticised Drag Race UK after something they recently posted. About a week or so ago, the official Drag Race UK Twitter account posted saying, "Life is good because hashtag Drag Race UK is in it, hashtag last 7 minutes, hashtag Hope Core, 12 fierce drag queens, 10 weeks and 1 crown, guided by the legendary RuPaul, who will be crowned the UK's next Drag Race superstar." They included a short video montage of moments from throughout Drag Race UK. However, all of the queens featured in the video are white, and there were no queens of colour featured at all. This video then got a huge amount of backlash and criticism from people, saying that they should take down this quote whitewashed video. A few Drag Race queens also commented on the video, such as Tia Coffee, who said, "Is there a fun edit with queens of colour in it too?" Chaiti Grande replied to that saying, "Nah, we fade into the background." And Nyan Bella replied saying, "Now let's clock that part." And Tayris also commented saying, "This part." Nyan Bella also replied to the video separately saying, "Oh, this is quite interesting. Also, why not use season 7 clips given that it's the season you're promoting?" Shortly after all of this controversy happened with this Drag Race UK video they posted, Sally TM tweeted saying, "Hello, here is my interpretation of the 7 minutes Hope Core thing. I also want to say, editing this, it's crazy to be part of this legacy, love drag." And Sally had made her own montage of moments from Drag Race UK, which featured both white queens but also prominently featured queens of colour. Tia replied to Sally's video saying, "I'm glad you were cast on this season, but now I wish you were hired as social media manager as well." Chaiti Grande replied saying, "Sally, I love you so effing much." Tayris Mongardi said, "My gyal," and Zahira Sapanta from Drag Race UK commented saying, "Sally, you're amazing." So in general, it looks like Tayris was revealing that they had watered down the conversation they had in Untucked, and this only magnified the criticism that Drag Race UK was getting about their approach to the topic of race and the inclusion of queens of colour. The montage video post is still up on Drag Race UK's Twitter account, but most of the comments are pretty scathing. But I just thought that this was a very important bit of information that Tayris revealed, and it does bring up a very important wider issue, which is why I wanted to include it in this video. However, as I always say, please do not use this video as an excuse to send hate to anyone involved, and also please note that any racist or inappropriate comments will not be tolerated on this channel under any circumstance, so make sure you're mindful about what you say and how that may affect other people. So there you go, there was the Have Your Say video for Drag Race UK Season 7 Episode 6. Let me know what you thought of this Rusical in the comments, and how does it stack up to other Rusicals on Drag Race, and what is your favourite Rusical in Drag Race history? If you'd like to have your comment featured in my Have Your Say polls, as well as get things like priority when submitting interview questions, early access to my videos, exclusive access to the Patreon chat, as well as a raft of other benefits, please check out my Patreon. It's an amazing way to support my channel, and it really does make a huge difference, so please check it out, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. Also, thank you so much to my amazing Patreon members. Some of you have been with me for so long now, and I honestly pinch myself all the time thinking I have such amazing people supporting me. Honestly, thank you so much. I really appreciate it more than you know. If you like these videos and want to see more of them, please make sure you like or leave a comment, because it really does help boost it in the algorithm. And of course, please make sure you do your big one and smash that subscribe button. I'd love to get to 140 by the end of the year. I only have 2 months to do it, so please help me out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me in the future for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. Thank you so much. Bye.